Good, thank you. I'm really good at making roast potatoes, and I'm really good at being a coffee snob, as people have really seen today, right? They are mundane superpowers. So you're going to have 30 seconds, and then I'm going to ask if anybody's got one, because I promised them if they were going to do it and embarrass themselves, I would ask you as well. Okay? Your 30 seconds starts now. Go. 30, 29, 28, 27, 26, 25, 24, 23. 16, 15, 14, 13, 12. I think I should pick on Chris first. Yeah, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Lovely. Chris, hi Chris. I'm going to pick on you first. Don't know why. Have you got a mundane superpower? Yep. What is it? Really good at self-checkouts. Oh, wow. Would you agree? Would you agree, Alice? Yeah. Okay, lovely. Anybody over here who's got a good one? A mundane superpower? Yes.
I'm good at loading the dishwasher the most efficiently.
Oh, my God. Loading the dishwasher in an efficient way. Look, you got a round of applause for that. That is a really good one. Lovely. Any down here? What did we come up with? Anything nice? Anything? Yes? What was your one? Organizing things, that's super great. What's something you're really good at organizing? Things in drawers. Do you do socks? Amazing, lovely. What was your one? Ooh, very nice, lovely, thank you. And have you got one? Do you want to repeat it? Repeat. Getting rid of stains, always good. So if that wine drops, you're there. Have either of you got one for us? What's your good one? You just put her in it. That's great. Fabulous.
So my mundane superpower is that I'm ginger and I can subtly tan. It's quite impressive.
Wow. Okay. That particularly last week, that's been really impressive. Thank you. Lovely. And over here, Bryony, have you got one?
Not really.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Bryony. That's great. At the back, did you have one? Very good at vacuuming. Very good. We had that earlier as well, didn't we? Lovely. We have a vacuum off. That's very nice. Lovely. Well, great. Thank you. That's some mundane superpowers that we've got. Now I'm going to pass over to Alice, who's going to kick off the event. I have been your warm-up. Lovely. Over to you, Alice.
Okay, so welcome. Thank you so much for coming. One of the things that I think you hear most when you are a cancer patient is about how brave you are. It's something that people say in a very much throwaway manner. It's a crutch that is leaned on when other stock phrases have been used up. You're brave when you lose your hair. You're brave when you're in pain and you grimace through it. You're brave when your dad says you look like a boiled potato. You're brave. You're so brave. So brave. As a result, it's become a word that some people who've had cancer don't like to hear. It feels like a cliche, like a jacket that you put on that's too tight around the shoulders. It feels constricting, restrictive. Like when we try to move in it, there's no space for our bodies, no space for other emotions like sadness or anger, fear, anxiety, or humour. Because believe it or not, cancer can actually be kind of funny at times. But bravery doesn't leave space for the cracks through the brave face plastered around our lips and eyes. Being brave doesn't leave room for the expanse of emotions that come with being a cancer patient. Courage, though, courage to me feels like something different. And when I think about the people who signed up to take part in this project, I see them as deeply courageous. And I'm not going to look at any of them while I say this. A brave person is a person who sees a dangerous situation and reacts in the face of that situation without thinking. Courage, on the other hand, is seeing a situation or a dangerous or scary experience and acting even though you are scared. 13 people signed up for this project, and in my opinion, my humble opinion, what they have shown is boundless courage. They chose to get involved in something and confront their illness head-on. They have lifted the rug, and they have stared directly into the face of things they had long since swept under it. They have peered into the dark crevices of their mind, pulled out what resided there, and inspected it from every angle possible. They have mined for carbon in long-forgotten places, added pressure, and, again, in my opinion, and hopefully by the end of tonight yours, produced diamonds. Because that's the thing about writing, and that's the thing about writing about cancer. As cancer patients, we can talk about it endlessly. We have our patter down, our script well rehearsed. I was diagnosed with breast cancer on the 7th of July, 2015. I did this, 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 and this. We speak it out loud, and we choose every word really, really carefully. But as soon as someone asks us to write about it, to turn it over into something written on a page, well, the experience changes. It changes a lot. We step out of ourselves and onto that paper. And according to James Penbaker and Sandra Biol, researchers who've done so much in this space, they are experts on the mental benefits of writing and turning our experiences into coherent narratives, especially when it comes to trauma. This process helps us figure it out. It helps us make sense of it. The 13 people who have contributed, not all of them are here today, but the 13 people who have contributed to this collection of writing are courageous, even if they don't feel it, because it takes courage to confront things that feel scaly and dark, things that they may have pushed to one side, things that we think we might have faced head on, but actually, in reality, we haven't looked at from all angles, because there are so many angles. It takes courage to show up for your creative work as well, especially when you don't feel like a creative person. Even if you do feel like a creative person, sometimes it takes courage to show up for your creative work then too, because writing, not always a joy. It takes courage as well to put yourself in the hands of someone you might not know that well and trust them to be your humble guide, and a humble guide who's going to take you through the thorns of a topic that is sensitive and delicate and may sting when you explore it. It takes courage then, too, to stand up in front of an audience to tell those stories, to step out of your comfort zone even further, just because Alice, stood in front of you, needed to get Arts Council funding for an idea that I had, because that is how we have ended up here. Bravery is easier. Courage is hard won. And I'm so grateful for every show of courage from the participants in this project. Poison Season Stories is a collection of poetry, fiction, and creative non-fiction written by those diagnosed with cancer in their teens, 20s, or 30s. Tonight, they're performing it for you, and I cannot wait for you to see it. I can't wait for you to see the love and humour and candour and honesty that these people have put into these works, because it's been such a privilege for me to witness it. And honestly, I'm just really excited for you to witness it as well. So this evening is going to work like this. Each person is going to perform. You'll clap, hopefully, fingers crossed. They're going to introduce the next performer, and then so on and so forth. So here we go. First up, we've got Dom coming in from Zoom. His mundane superpower is giving an above-average hug, and he's going to perform his piece, Sleep. I hope you enjoy.
I used to go to sleep for 1 week at a time. Nah, don't stress, that's just his way. Oh well, never mind. I'd rock up to the ward, about 3:30. We'd all chat till midnight, then drip and pill. That's me. Off to the land between the sleeping and the dead, floating, dreamless, trapped in black, inside that shell in bed. I'd emerge awake, drowning man at sea, thrashing head above the waves, with none above to see. To soothe the jolly sailor were tales I had abroad of discs and wizards, sparrowhawks escaping from it all, whispered dreams in my ear, a song in empty night, a bright line that crossed through the void to home, that far off place. I open up my eyes with friendly faces round. Muscles still do not respond till all the meds are found. To say my body aches would not be fair to pain. I feel every little death from limbs cut off from bane. Home. And then back so soon. 2 days, then back to sleep again in dreamless lands, walking the unchosen track. Should you sail these seas, my friend, I wish you well. Poison seas and stories be the truth as I can tell. Thank you. Next we have Bav, and his mundane superpower is identifying airplanes by looking at them from a distance.
Dear Diary, April the 2nd, 2022. No one thing about me is that I've never really appreciated what I've got. Now that's awfully cringy, I'm aware. But I haven't. Life hasn't exactly been simple for me, but it hasn't been bad. If you told your average Joe that you had cancer aged 12 or 13, I'm sure they'd tell you that you'd had a pretty crappy life. But I haven't. I'm still here, I have a wonderful family, decent friends, blah blah blah, I think you get the gist. Uni isn't going too badly, he says, knowing he hasn't practiced his work all week or done any of his portfolio, but that's alright. I feel like there's a decently good reason for this. The past few months have rung up memories that I had long ago buried and forgotten. Yet I sit and ponder whether that's really the case. The word relapse was one I never thought I'd have to come to terms with. Doing an oncology degree myself, you might think I'm a bit foolish there, but I never thought I'd have to experience it in this aspect. I've never thought of myself as an optimist, but I guess I can blame my cancer for that. It's a weird one, as right now I see cancer as like a physical projection of all the bad stuff inside of me, and treatment just takes it away and kills it. Being the person that nothing was ever good enough for, I feel as though I've had somewhat of a wake-up call. I always thought the first time I was diagnosed about how I'd have done things differently. Last time, receiving the news was so unexpected, whereas now I feel as though I have my words thought out. The things I'd say to the doctor, who herself seems calm in herself and awfully cheery, she encapsulates the word optimism. Yet I'm still unsure. It's a funny thing having cancer, especially in what everyone says are the years you should cherish. Never say that you want to leave school, they're the best years of your life. I always respond, what, sitting in a chemo bay, having my veins harassed? Yeah, I'm all right then. But obviously I never do, because that's obviously not the right thing to say, but yeah. I am glad it was me though. I'm glad I was able to manipulate the experience in such a manner that I never thought I'd be able to. If it is back, I do hope I can do the same, because right now I'm on the verge of crying again. That's all for now. Speak soon, diary. Next up is Natasha, and her mundane superpower is her limitless capability to eat Parma ham.
This piece is called Coming to My Senses. You know when you fall asleep on your arm and it goes completely numb, and that prickling tingle creep as the fibers of your muscles wake up again? That was it. That was the feeling. The feeling of stepping out the airport arrivals for the first post-chemo adventure, smelling that tropical air so thick I could bite it. Glimmers of myself began appearing, lured out by the technicolor glare of street food carts. Who would have thought The smell of roasting mystery meat and the incessant beep, honk beep of Bangkok traffic can make this husk of a girl feel again. After months of suspended animation, of hospitals and life-giving poisons, of a muffled underwater void, no air, no colour, the volume turned down, horrid shuffling bleak purgatory, I held the tentative, sweaty little hand of my inner child, the one that liked climbing trees and running around with no pants on, and said, remember this. Remember tasting, remember smelling, and being held by the sea, embracing that tender saline caress of the ocean, rather than flinching at the hands of some frosty consultant or sad-eyed nurse. I ate everything in sight, including the roasted mystery meat from the neon-draped carts. I drank fruit booze concoctions with highly questionable names. Sandy's Sexgasm Martini, anyone? I cannot tell you how much I missed having functioning taste buds. To feel chili flakes tap dance on my tongue after the third grey mouthfeel I had come to know was almost holy. Actually, not almost. It was a religious encounter. The ferry to the island earned the apt nickname the Vomit Comet. Slight concern when they handed us sick bags as soon as we stepped on board. I tried to glue my eyelids shut and force a nap, ambitiously hoping sleep would negate any churning gut movement. More for me, because I was abruptly awoken by an all too familiar sense of abdominal unease waving its little acid green warning flag. But what surprised me the most was the thought of how nice, lovely even, it was to be puking for normal people reasons. Average Joe upchuck on a boat to paradise, not green-gilled, sick person vom brought on by a sad, drug-filled tummy. A Buddhist monk looks up from his sick bag long enough to give me a reassuring smile. Could be worse, I think. A lot worse. Once firmly on dry land and all the swirling, green-themed feelings had abated, my mind was focused on two things: food and the sea. Two of my pure, true loves in this life, who for a long, long time had been unceremoniously shoved into the gutter to make way for the vast expanse of medical flavourlessness. My idea of heaven is a charcuterie board floating on a lilo. Firstly, food. There aren't words to express the unadulterated joy food brings me. Or there are, it's just someone somewhere has probably said it better than me. High-end food, low-end food, fast food, slow food. To me, it's a way to show love to others, and a way to show love to myself, and a way to truly understand a new place, a culture. I'd had 6 months of this joy extinguished. Anything I put in my mouth felt like a stale moth carcass, dust, drought. But now I was in the land of sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and hot, and my body was inching towards something vaguely resembling sentience. That first bite of larb, a northeastern Thai dish full of miscellaneous pig parts, roasted chilies reminiscent of fire itself, of lime and mint that stabbed the tongue with 1,000 delightful daggers. It was a bolt of lightning, bringing Frankenstein's monster into the world of the living. Secondly, my love la mer. As a child, I would refuse to extract myself from the sea on holidays. I would force my eyes open underneath the water to try and truly attain my lifelong goal of being a mermaid. This carried on well into adulthood, and mermaid is still to this day pretty far up on my list of life ambitions. My treatment happened during the murk of winter, and even if I had been able to swim, pools aren't great if you've got zero immune function. Soupy lakes of other people's lost plasters and child snot. Now, I was presented with this eye-achingly bewitching expanse of blue. She held me. She told me stories, the crunch and gurgle of sand and tiny creatures going about their aquatic business, seahorses and crabs on their daily commute. She made my skin feel anew, stripped away these cobwebs of misery. And I'm fully aware that this sounds like a fairly excessive tree-hugging way to describe a body of water. But when you have your very essence, the things that make you, you, flayed off by trauma, simple things like a bloody lovely swim, a life itself. Swaying in my hammock cocoon, I contemplated who I was now after what had come hurtling into my life and mutilated reality. That eternal human question, who the hell am I? Anyone who's been through a life-altering experience, be it cancer, injury, trauma, or loss, they know that sting of grief for what life was like before. On the return flight, I can feel that tropical tint start to ebb. Saturation's getting turned down again. But something under my shell feels different. Gazing out the window at the cloudscape, forlornly cramming tiny aeroplane snacks into my mouth, there's a moment, a pinprick that makes me say a small "oh" out loud. There I am, a creature of old and new, stumbling towards its latest incarnation. Me. Next up is Bridget, whose mundane superpower is navigating the delights of MailChimp.
Hi. This piece is called Fast Bleep. At the end of the corridor where hurtling chaos lulls, lies a room where a fast bleep rings out. Respond immediately. Respond. God damn it. There's a visitor threatening to kill. I'm frozen here. Too slow to respond. Trapped now. Damned to replay. That ammonium corridor, that salt of my mouth, that blue of his eyes as bleep, 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 bleep. Splintered. Now I'm locked into this room. Thank you. Next up is Emmeline, and her mundane superpower is building IKEA furniture.
So my piece is called The Lover. You don't need to worry. I'll be here for you. I'll be patient and wait for you. A hand to touch is nice, but isn't it so much nicer with me always with you? Pain isn't necessary, not when I'm here to keep you company. Memories are meant to come and go. You know I'm the only one worth remembering. Deja vu is just another way for me to see you. You can't deny it. I've ignited a spark in you. Some gifts you've outgrown. Let me take care of them for you. I will look after you when you give up. And you will. You might feel alone, but you're not. I'll always be here for you. After all, who are you without me? You and I, we belong together. Just me and you. Next up is Suki, and her ability and mundane power is being able to tell who is in the house where just by the sound of them.
My piece is called If I Knew I Were Dying. If I knew I were dying, I would stretch my loud, skin-tight shorts over my big, beautiful thighs, combine it with my simple black running top, skimming my surgically shaped figure. I sigh and grimace at the thought of moving my body, the recovery longer than the run itself. Placing each foot in the comfort of my running shoes, like clouds cushioning my feet whispering that they would be there to support me through it all. I'd step into a grey, drizzly day, people shuffling, looking down to avoid the puddles, surrounding me with their umbrellas, hoping not to get wet. I, on the other hand, lifting my head to feel the cold droplets of the morning rain melting on my hot skin. Breathing in the damp air as I began to put one foot in front of the other, filling my lungs with the sweet, sweet air. The birdsong surrounds me, a stark contrast to the screaming of the rubber tyres of the passing vehicles. As my feet pound the pavement, my heart begins a race of its own, trying to outrun the beating of my feet on the grey concrete. I feel my chest begin to scream as the air rushes in and out, my breath getting heavier and louder with each stride. A stitch shoots through my stomach like a lightning bolt, striking me suddenly. It takes my breath away and my whole body wants to halt to a stop. But I remember that I'm dying and I refuse to let it win. I slow my breathing, expand my lungs until they cannot take any more air, and slowly breathe it out through pursed lips. Once, twice, 3 times. As the pain subsides, so does the fear which was manifesting itself within me, questioning if I would be able to make it. My feet continue to carry me until I cannot run anymore. I slow my pace as the salty sweat maneuvers over the lines of my face, stinging my eyes, drops making their way to my tongue, the salt like that of the sea dancing on my taste buds. My body tired and my muscles screaming out for salvation, I'm suddenly confronted with a wave of happiness crashing over me and engulfing me in a feeling of pure bliss, reminding me that, although I may be dying, I am currently still alive. Next up, we have Bav again, because he's greedy. His other mundane superpower is that he's a part-time travel agent. In other words, he's able to find cheap holidays quickly and efficiently.
Dear Diary, April the 10th, 2022. So is it back? I feel like these biopsy results have gone missing. It's literally been 3 weeks. If one more person says to me, no news is good news, or if it was something bad, they'd have sorted it by now, I might actually scream. Now, for most people, a week will fly by. Yeah, you know what, so do most of mine. I just think, you know what, let's go to uni, have fun and forget stuff. Genuinely, everything I do, I think, if this is the last time I do it. Waiting is the worst. With my course, I full well know how all of this works. I'm going through patient pathways in my head and all the big, unnecessary long words are falling through my mind like massive bricks smashing my skull. I don't want a migraine. I don't want a migraine. I have a migraine. Everyone keeps on bringing up plans for summer. I have to keep telling them all, I cannot book anything in case I can no longer go. All I want is a plan. I used to think my ideal summer would consist of going out, making crazy memories, partying, doing new things. Realistically, all I want is a summer where I can be relaxed at home with my family and friends. Okay, we all know that's not true. I also want to go out and do mad stuff, but you know. I just want to be as stress-free as today. I'm so stressed. I cannot even express into words, just that my hands are shaking like a leaf in a storm right now. I was a terror today, just screaming and crying for no reason, or I don't fully understand the reason. The issue is I keep pushing everyone away and being nasty, hoping they'll leave, as I don't want to cause anyone any stress. But I do it in such an unhealthy way. But then an hour ago, I got the text, the one that calms me down.
B, I love you. I am here for you and will always be there for you.
Thanks, diary. Next up is Callum, whose mundane superpower is unclogging sinks.
So my piece is called The Flower Vase. I thought I'd read somewhere that you weren't meant to bring flowers into hospitals anymore. Risk of infection and bedside clutter. The same reason why you don't see doctors wearing white coats and ties, apart from on sitcoms on TV. There's something not quite right. Such a bright and cheery cover on a booklet filled with side effects, warnings, and numbers to call in emergencies when things go wrong. Importantly, they leave a blank space to add your own letters and notes, taken in the blur of escalating specialist appointments. Time measured in chunks of 2-week referrals and choreographed chemotherapeutic cycles. A scrapbook, but one you wish the pages would remain stuck shut. I think about that cover again. Imagine the artist commissioned to decorate that booklet. Could have been the next Hockney or Rankin, instead set to feature in NHS chemo units up and down the country. Well, a job's a job, right? I tell this to my mum. She shrugs, scowls, and says, "Well, what else do you expect them to put on it?" I answer with silence. I can't help but wonder, as I let my mind drift, whose flowers are they? Was there a competition? Was a Blue Peter badge at stake? Who was the judge? And if so, I really want to see the runners-up. What does it mean? A comfort, nature, something familiar, peace, growth, tranquility, being cared for, watered on a windowsill? Or is it cut down, picked in its prime, looking bright and lifelike for some time before slowly starting to wilt? I joke to myself, what if they put another plant on there? A sunflower, an oak tree, a fern. It has to be a plant, of course. Can't be an animal, can't be a person. No way, you've got to be kidding. I mean, plants don't get cancer, do they? A cactus. Yeah, a cactus. That might be slightly more truthful. Your treatment may be prickly, won't be pretty, make or break, but with any luck, against all the odds, in this harsh environment, you might just pull through, and you might just grow. I kept that booklet. Weird, I know. Almost 5 years on. It sits on the top of the bookshelf in the guest bedroom at my parents' house, where it happened. Above the school exercise books and short stories, I kept all my bits and bobs of cancer paperwork, blood cancer bureaucracy, malignant mail-outs. We're all either burners or keepers, I'm sure. Throw it in the fire the minute you're finished with it. Last day of school, the ceremonial ripping of revision notes, algebra into ashes. Or, if not, we box things up, lock it away in lofts, scribblings left to discolour and fade until barely legible. But we know exactly what they say. I'm the latter, if the GCSE textbooks underneath my old bed are anything to go by. See, I've always gathered postcards, prints, and posters, sketchings and etchings, a museum exhibition here, a gallery there. Somehow the daffodils in vase on table, artist unknown, didn't feel any different. a twisted souvenir, a memory of a turbulent time where my cultural surroundings were less V&A and more NHS. Both free for entry now, at certain times there may be a queue. I bring it down sometimes, that folder. For now, though, it stays where it is. I'm not quite ready to let it go just yet. Part of me, perhaps worrying that, like those vocab lists, equations, and historical timelines, I might just need them again one day. The booklet sits alongside the other notes from university. That degree I passed against the odds. Exams sat between chemo doses, essays scrawled out with cannula in hand. The degree I didn't ever quite feel I'd finished. Final certificate, not sure it was mine. That brush with cancer, almost another module. I wasn't sure whether I'd pass or fail. I'd let it gather dust, but dust I occasionally wipe away. And next up, we have Toby, who is reading a piece on behalf of Dan. Now, Dan and Toby have a shared mundane superpower, which is having a mild obsession with Alex Parks.
Pop culture. I know we agreed to stop arguing about this, but I can't help myself. Hotel is by far the best series of American Horror Story. It's got excellent outfits, queerness, and Lady Gaga being a hot bisexual vampire. Genuinely, I don't understand what more you could want. I know it's missing Jessica Lange, but our queen, Sarah Paulson, is there, and obviously Kathy Bates. You love Kathy Bates. When I moved in with random strangers from Spare Room, I really didn't expect us to accidentally form an after-work film club. We made our way through most of American Horror Stories and all of Breaking Bad. We must have watched every horror film on every streaming platform we had, and of course, Big Mouth, which we had to watch after a horror film just to counteract it a bit. I'm thankful you left the really scary horror films for when I was out. I'm even more thankful that I got to burst into the lounge at the perfect moment in Hereditary, that you both jumped out of your seats and were screaming. I think you almost dropped your dessert. Sorry about that. It must have been one of those evenings we were all in the flat together that we noticed Yoga Girl for the first time. I once saw her with her leg high up on the balcony, practically touching her head as she leaned over smoking a cigarette. She became an entertaining background fixture of our film club too. Us debating whether that man was her boyfriend or her dad is one of the things that made our flat start to feel like home. Silly little discussions as we watched our shows and covering our eyes from whatever Sarah Paulson was screaming about. I suspect she moved in with her boyfriend/dad in the end. Or maybe she just stopped doing yoga on her balcony. I'm not sure if you know this, but I was fresh out of cancer when I moved in. Obviously you knew I had cancer, but you didn't know I just literally had it. I practically walked from my clean scans into the flat viewing, and suddenly London felt more scary to me than it had been before. It was full of questions like, where is the nearest hospital, and will anyone be close enough to help me if I need it? Actually, you sort of answered that one in the first week in the flat. I was so overwhelmed by everything, I kept vomiting, and you ran to the shop and got me some Lucozade. We all know Lucozade cures all, right? My health anxiety got worse in the months that followed, and I started fixating on other things too, like whether I'd locked the door in the right way. Even with my anxieties, my many anxieties, our flat started to feel like home. It felt like we found our places quickly. We found them literally on our preferred seats, but also in terms of our flat dynamics. Mostly it was me and our housemate jokingly arguing about whatever ridiculous question he put to us that day, while you did a Gemma Collins and said you're not going to get involved. My plants started to thrive in the flat as well. You both said she was getting too big and there were constant threats to throw her out of the window, but I know you were secretly misting her leaves. When she got so big, we had to put her on a side table. I really enjoyed sitting next to her. She towered over me, and it was like being sat in a safe, tiny jungle. She was a present from some friends for me to come home to. They arranged it so she'd be there after my week of hospital appointments and scans to see if my treatment had worked. I was healing, and she was growing, and the flat was home. In the middle of the first national lockdown in a global pandemic, you died, and there was no way to substantiate it. We were all locked down in separate places, and it just felt like you had gone home to your parents and were coming back soon. We couldn't have seen each other anyway, so it felt like you were there. You probably hadn't read my message yet because of screen fatigue, or maybe you were waiting until you'd watched the Drag Race episode before reporting back. I think a lot about how I was healing in that flat whilst you were getting sicker. Was there a point where we met in the middle? You got slower coming down the stairs and I got less fatigued. I found myself feeling stronger and more confident in my body again whilst you threw unexpected infections at you, and the subsequent hospital stays that kept you away from us. Was there ever a world in which we could have both been fine? I was 26 when they told me I had a high chance of being alive in 5 years' time. It felt so comical to have someone tell me I was very likely to live to 32. What about 33? When I made it to 30 and you didn't, I really struggled to reconcile it. I overtook you in age for the first time, and it was a big one too. We were supposed to be 30 and flirty and thriving. Now I'm turning 32 and you're perpetually 29. I'm walking away from statistics and hospital appointments and back into a life where I don't have to consider myself a patient. And with that, I'm leaving you behind. I'm hopeful this will be our goodbye, but I know better. I know you'll be there at my birthday as our age gap gets wider. Whenever I think about aging now, I think about how we were on the brink of our 30s before everything changed. I want to reference Tick, Tick, Boom here, which of course we would have watched together, but you weren't around to see it. You missed the finale of Schitt's Creek. Moira officiated David and Patrick's wedding dressed like the Pope. You'll have loved it. Drag Race is finally doing the winner's season everyone has been speculating about. There's a petition going around to keep James Corden out of the Wicked films. He was in the prom. Most of his acting gay was in his hands. Ariana DeBose won an Oscar for Anita in West Side Story. She was amazing. There's an audio of Louis Theroux rapping about how his money don't jiggle, jiggle, it folds, and I've had it stuck in my head for days. At one point, people seemed to be angry they were diversifying the M&Ms, whatever that means. Shrek has had a real renaissance, and it's truly bizarre. A woman called Jackie Weaver got famous because of a Zoom parish council meeting, where she apparently had no authority. And Nigella Lawson pronounced microwave in a funny way, and the internet loved it. Lizzo bought a $55,000 flute and then took it to the Met Gala. It's green, gold, and gorgeous. Kylie is moving back to Australia. For a while, everyone was bumping elbows as a way of saying hello, and it was the worst. You're an uncle again. I met your family, and they're lovely. I don't want to forget you. I just want to stop feeling bad that I'm here and you're not. One day, I'll be able to watch our shows again. But until then, I'll keep my list of pop culture moments we would have discussed and wonder what Yoga Girl is doing now. So it's time for that running feature, which is Bav. Bav is here again for the third part of Bav's diary entries. And final mundane superpower is forgetting everyone's name and calling them my lovely. So, here is my lovely.
Dear Diary, back by popular demand. April the 30th, 2022. Mamma mia, here we go again. Genuinely, I feel like I'm watching my own life through a lens. All my friends are begging me to book those flights to go on holiday. I mean, not quite Bora Bora like my lock screen, but, you know, Europe will do. Festival tickets I need to book, but I won't. Why? Last time, I had a whole trip I'd waited 2 years for and couldn't go. So why would I waste my money to now be deprived of the opportunities, first world problems I know? But it's not just the money, it's the excitement, then the letdown. That's what really kills. I feel so isolated, even though everyone is here. I feel like everyone else is so happy and excited to be done with exams and uni, yet here I am, terrified not knowing how far of my life I should plan ahead. That doesn't feel fair. Disappointment could not come soon enough, as the question above all is, can I live my life? I am being so ungrateful right now, but this is how I feel, or this is my coping mechanism for the day. I've played the scenario over in my head 200 times. Like I said, this time I want to do things properly. I want to walk in the room, receive the news, walk out with my head held high, do my treatment, and then live my life, I guess. Walking into that department, everything went blurry. I have no idea why my tenses keep changing, but even writing this morning's events, I feel nostalgic in the worst way possible. We got called in, I sat down, the biopsy showed no malignant activity. So you expect me to shout, great? Yeah, sure, I'm happy. It's nothing now, but what's next? How many more times am I going to have these scares? They consume my brain and utterly bruise and batter me. Never mind, it's time for me to perform for you, my audience, and just be fine, I guess. I'll try to live my life as best as I can, take advantage of those opportunities and book those holidays. I guess I'm thinking in my head until the next scare. So next up, we have my lovely, I'm joking, Shamaya, who is excellent at remembering people's birthdays. Mine's the 2nd of October, by the way. I'm expecting a card.
Hi, my poem is called Those Around Us. I've changed the title like 10 times. Commiserations. Today is the day. You're told you have cancer. You're off and away. You have pain in your body and worries in your head. Fatigue makes it hard just to get out of bed. You're on your own. You're told what they know, but no one can tell you how treatment might go. Cancer demands to be treated well. After all, your body has become its hotel. Killing a tumour is a full production, with lots of new parts who need introduction. To start with, there'll be a few doctors to see to learn all about your pathology. What's that, you ask? I know, it's confusing. Sadly, the words only get more bemusing. There'll be PET scans and ports and central lines too. A drip stand you'll struggle to will to the loo. You'll walk up and down wards, fellow patients will stare, mostly just wondering if that's your real hair. Hearing such bad news is hard to believe, the injustice of it so hard to conceive. You see, having cancer is not like the flu. You'll bid farewell to the life you once knew. The reason for having to go through this pain is something you'll question again and again. Nothing will ever make you see why. To find inner peace, you'll have to try to let go of all the hurt and sorrow. You'll find yourself grateful to see tomorrow. If health is wealth, then don't despair. You'll soon go from pauper to millionaire. No promises made though, cancer's unstable. To fully remove it, they might not be able. Whatever the case, there are people around you. When things get tough, their love will surround you. Each person shows it in a different way, like wishing you good luck on each chemo day, being interested in how you're feeling, or helping assess how your port scar's healing. Some will wipe away your tears as you share with them your relapse fears. Others might not know what to say. They'll just cheer you up at the end of each day. And even though life might feel quite bizarre, they'll treat you just like the same person you are. You'll make new friends from your hospital bed and find cancer buddies aren't something to dread. They're people whose paths should never have crossed, but somehow, without them, you'd feel rather lost. So commiserations, though this much is true. You might have cancer, but it doesn't have you. And I will hand over to lovely Alice, who is, a creative powerhouse. She's like the fourth behind this, but her mundane superpower is data entry.
It's true, I am really good at data entry. Can I get it off? So, that's all of our stories from this evening, and my lovely stagehand, my lovely. We've got a bit of time for a Q&A. So while Toby is bringing on the chairs, he told me to fill. And now I feel pressured and put on the spot. I will tell you, please come and take your seats, storytellers, and shall we have like a little bit of a round of applause for our storytellers once again? What? Bav, why do you look so concerned? You've already been up here 3 times, come on. So if anybody's got any questions that you want to ask, you're going to put us here on this side? Us versus them? If you've got any questions you want to ask about the kind of creative process, how we ended up here, Toby's going to be our little roaming mic.
Can I ask a question first?
Go on then.
It's that way of giving you some time to think about
you can think.
You can prep one. I'm going to go to Shamia, if that's all right.
Oh, go on then,
Last one, and it's only because I was really interested. I've only had the chance to work with the group today. Shamia, I'm wondering, can you explain to everyone how you got to the poem that you created? Because it was a really interesting, it was inspired by something really interesting.
Actually, because I forgot to say that bit, so thanks, Toby. No wonder you do a podcast. Afterthoughts, everyone, get and listen. When I was a kid, I loved Dr. Seuss, as I'm sure lots of you did, and I loved the poem, Oh, the Places You'll Go. I think someone read it, you might remember, when we were at school, to us, like when we left, or like I watched it in a graduation speech of some kind. And I love that poem and like the promise of like life that's to come. So I kind of like put my own cancer-y spin on it, I guess. I feel like I'm meant to say something really like deep and thoughtful, but no. Shall I ask a question to someone else? Am I allowed? Okay. I said that and then didn't have one. Bav, like what made you pick up a diary? Have you always written one? Or like, I don't know, is that a bit personal? What's the story behind wanting to share those in particular?
I think I know the answer to that.
Thank you for giving me more airtime, for starters. That's much appreciated. So when I was having treatment, I wasn't really processing stuff as it was happening. So what I decided to do was kind of make a video diary with my parents would set it up every day and they'd be like, go on, you can do it if you want. Just because I didn't always want to say something to someone because some of the stuff that was going through my head I didn't want to share. So it was a way of me just talking to a tape, which I have never been able to rewatch. And then I just thought this was a nice way for me to kind of log this last experience that I've gone through. So yeah.
Do you want to ask somebody else a question?
It's a lot of pressure.
I'll ask a question.
Hello, my name's Chris. What was your favourite part about doing Poison Season stories? That's to all of the storytellers, I guess.
Does anybody want to jump in and take it? Oh, all right, I'll just stay here. Great.
I'm going to say that it was a really nice way of looking at cancer. I think the general thing is that people, if you hear the word cancer, you think of a bald, old person. But the way that Alice made us think about it was beautiful, I think. And that there are positives that come out of it. I know that a few of us have spoken about it today, that there are positives that come out of cancer, and you wouldn't usually expect that. But yeah, being able to get your thoughts down and actually share it with people and being vulnerable is a lovely thing to do, I think. So yeah, thanks, Alice.
Thanks, that's such a good answer. I didn't pay him to ask the question or her to answer that way. Yeah, anyone else want to add anything? Emmeline.
Yeah, I think what was also really nice is we all kind of get very used to telling our cancer stories, but kind of facts and figures and kind of just a bit like a recipe almost. You kind of just stand there, kind of list it all, and you're like, there we go, I had cancer, and then you leave. And you get very used to that. Whereas with this, it kind of made you look at it from a very different angle and kind of be like, oh, actually, I kind of hadn't remembered that. I'd forgotten how that felt. And going through all of that, really kind of just, yeah, it was a very interesting way of kind of realizing that maybe you hadn't moved on quite as much as you thought. So kind of oh, maybe you're kind of really still angry about this point. What can I do? And yeah, it also gave me the opportunity to write my first ever poem. So that was cool.
And I think one thing I would say as well is this is just a sample of the work that they've all done. So we looked at fiction, we looked at creative nonfiction, we looked at poetry as well, and this is just kind of scratching the surface, really. There's so much great work that they all did, and the other people did as well. So yeah, I think it was just, for me, it was like a feast of incredible writing that I got to read and be on the end of. So yeah, it was really fun to work with everyone. So thanks.
A follow-up, how do you all know each other?
They don't. So I work with Toby on a podcast called Afterthoughts, and that is a storytelling podcast. And we, when we started that, I had this idea for this collection of written stories, and I decided that I wanted to do that and pursue that. So I approached the Arts Council to get funding, and finally managed to secure it. It only took me 3 attempts and then a lot of hair loss. Not from going bald from cancer. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And then I kind of just put a call out on social media and said, would anybody like to be involved in this project? And a bunch of people applied, and I kind of went through the process of trying to choose as many different cancer types and many different experiences, and trying to choose as kind of wider breadth of storytellers as possible. And we got these people involved and a couple of other people who weren't able to be involved in the live storytelling aspect. And I ran some writing workshops with them. It was like a half-a-day workshop, and then sent them away to do some writing, and then they came back and we had a one-on-one session where they could spend some time with me kind of working on the writing and developing it further. And then I was kind of on the end of email to kind of answer questions. And then today, we started at 10:30, kind of taking these pieces and turning them into these live performance pieces that you saw today. They worked with Toby because his background is theatre, my background's writing, and we just kind of turned it into these pieces that you saw today. So some of them may have, we decided this morning we were going to pretend that nobody knew each other because we couldn't remember if they were on, because there was 2 workshops. We couldn't remember who was on a workshop with each other because it was on Zoom, so we just pretended that nobody knew each other. We were just starting from scratch. But we've had a great day, and, well, I have anyway, so I hope you have. Yeah, so that's kind of how we got to where we are now.
Have you done writing before, and what was your experience of writing about something so emotional and so personal and something that's been quite a big part of your life? Did you find it useful, cathartic, or quite difficult?
Anyone want to jump in? Natasha, you haven't said anything. Do you want to jump in?
I think up until this point, the way that I dealt with it was dark humour and always making funnies out of it, which is great, and it is a great way of dealing with things, but it shouldn't be the only way you deal with things. And I think this was a really good chance to like safely write things that were dark and sad and emotional in a way that wasn't like digging up old wounds or being like traumatizing. It was just, yeah, like a really sort of like, you felt very like held and safe in a way that meant you could sort of bring up things and write about things that, you know, are a bit horrid. So yeah, I think it was definitely very cathartic, and very different to the writing I've done previously. I felt like I had the room to let the darkness out in a really sort of true way, rather than just making a funny about it all the time.
Should we go to Bridget as well? Bridget, do you want to say anything?
Did I hear Bridget there?
Yeah, you did.
No pressure, I've got like a big screen. You're all like small there. What was the question? I didn't quite hear it properly.
Would you like to repeat your question?
Yeah. Have you done much writing before about this sort of thing, and how did it feel to write something so personal? Was it quite cathartic, or was it quite difficult? What was your experience?
Like I have done writing before. I do write, and I did take part in some like creative writing classes at a Maggie Centre during my treatment, but it was nowhere near what this was like for me, because I'm quite some years on from my treatment now. I feel like this was, I did more processing in the writing here, and it was way more cathartic, and like there's so much stuff that I didn't realise that I hadn't processed, so I found it really, really powerful and helpful, and I'm still writing about it using prompts that Alice gave us in the workshop, and I think I'll probably be exploring it for a long time like that. I find writing a much, I was going to say easier way, but easier than therapy. It's not really. I think it goes hand in hand with therapy, but it kind of brings up stuff that then makes it easier to take this stuff to therapy, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's my slightly rambly answer.
Thank you. Great answer. Loved it. Tick, tick, tick.
Thank you, Alice.
So, I mean, I had written stuff before, I think, and I was one of those annoying, in inverted commas, people that first thought after they got told they had cancer, as well as everything else, was, oh God, I better do the blog, sort of thing. Yeah. So did a blog during treatment, but I guess that was almost, it was, although I like to use a lot of like dark humour, it had a really like practical point to it. It was about kind of letting people know that I was still there and what was going on. Whereas this, I guess, is slightly different. It's given you kind of the space to actually, you know what, it doesn't have to have a particular purpose. Actually, you've got a bit of free reign, freedom to write about anything. And I think it's so rare that we actually get the chance to write. I think there's, you feel so much pressure who you're writing for, who's gonna listen to it, who's gonna read it, whereas it's nice to actually just be given a blank sheet of paper and just see what happens. Write some words, see what happens, and then actually getting to share it at the end of the day is fantastic. So yes, it is an incredibly like cathartic process, but it's good fun as well. It's really nice to be able to experiment and with expert guidance of creatives like Alice and Toby to explore it and learn how to actually write well. And it was, yeah, fantastic opportunity.
This is doing my ego the world of good. Any other questions?
to everyone. Oh, God, this is relevant, actually, because there goes, I've got a microphone, I've gone all wobbly. Which was harder, sitting down and trying to put your experiences into a written form, or standing up here and doing it in front of all of us?
That's a great question. Shami, we haven't heard from you, have we?
We have.
Have we?
Oh, hello. I would definitely say standing in front of you all. I think we all talked about this earlier. It's weird because, like, majority of you I don't know, but I think there's something about, for a lot of us, like, talking about cancer and then writing about it is a very different thing. And I think a lot of you have, like, spoken about sort of acknowledging feelings within yourself that you would never say out loud. And yeah, I haven't shared this writing with many people at all, and I think it's a very, like, personal thing to say, you know, I felt that, and have them hear it and not be able to. We were all saying earlier, you always want to, like, go up to the people you love and be like, I am okay, like, I promise I'm fine. So definitely the sharing. But yeah, I'm like a waffler anyway, so I found writing easy, relatively. Anyone else?
Yeah. So I found the writing part more difficult. So I'm quite used to performing. I've done quite a lot of acting before. So standing up and talking in front of people kind of didn't bother me quite as much. But then the writing, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to say. Because I was like Callum, I kind of, as soon as I found out I had cancer, I was like, yeah, blog time. And I wrote about it on Facebook quite a bit and kind of like put regular updates. But then kind of like actually writing something that was a bit more kind of like personal and a bit more, something that kind of had a bit more heart to it, rather than kind of like, I'm going for a scan today, this is how it feels, in a way. It kind of just felt
Takes
a bit more
courage.
Sorry?
Takes more courage.
Yeah, it definitely kind of, it made me think about a lot of different things and kind of thinking that, like, oh, yeah, that's an interesting way of thinking about all the things I hadn't thought about before, and kind of like writing them down in a completely new way as well. Kind of was a lot scarier because I also had no idea how to write poetry. And then for my creative piece, I kind of just started to be a bit stressed about it and kind of like the format, and would this work? Is it too mean? Is it too? Is it too much? I don't know. So for me, it was the writing that was a bit more stressful and a bit more of an unknown, to be honest. Yeah.
Emmeline wrote a really great piece. It's not too mean at all, but she wrote a really great piece about the tropes that you see in films, in cancer films in particular. And it's basically like a quiz, like, do you have a movie-appropriate type of cancer? And it's very funny, very witty, and very sharp. So it's not too mean.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, another one. Run, Toby, run.
Is there any advice, or like what can't I find on Google, or what won't people tell me about being on this, having this experience?
Oy, oy, oy. Sucky, go, Sucky, go.
Thank you. I think you'll find that a lot of people will really get on your nerves. I mean that in the nicest way possible. And I think people actually, they think they're helping, but they really don't. So, and I think you will also realise that although it's awful, there are some really great things that come out of it. The people that you meet, for one, the support systems that you didn't actually know were there before, which a lot you will find. So I personally found it online. And you'll realise that some people just don't get it, and that's okay. And you don't have to put that pressure on them to get it. You can just say, I'm doing okay, and you do your whole little, I'm all right. And you let them deal with that the way that they do. But just look after yourself. You are allowed to put yourself first. You are your priority, and you don't really need to care about what anybody else says. And you don't need to worry about what anyone else thinks. As long as you are looking after yourself, that's the best thing. Find the support where you can and deal with it the way that you want to. Stand in a field and scream if that's what helps. Do some exercise, eat loads of cake, just whatever makes you feel good. And you'll find that it's shit when you're going through it, but you will come out the other side. And you're a lot nicer person, I think, afterwards. So, yeah.
And always remember to breathe.
And additionally, because of my piece that I wrote about things like films and cancer, there's a lot of films where cancer pops up, rarely accurate. I'd recommend Googling in advance to see if there's cancer in a film, because every so often you'll become like in a little weird headspace, you watch a film, there's cancer, somehow it's always your cancer, and it's wrong. So Google is in advance. Yeah.
The other thing I was just going to add is it's okay not to be okay. I think that's the biggest one. You need to find someone. I mean, my mom, God bless her, the amount of stuff I've put her through, like walking through hospital waiting rooms, screaming, shouting, effing and blinding, crying, that's okay, because in the moment, that's what you need. And although you'll find people who you'll connect with who've been through the same thing as you, are going through the same thing, no two journeys are the same. And I don't know if everyone's going to agree with me saying this, but you can twist this really crap thing and turn it into such a positive. Don't let it define you. But if I hadn't have gone through this, I wouldn't be doing half the stuff I am right now. And I feel like it's happened for the better. And obviously I wish some of the stuff I never had to go through, but I am, in a way, this is going to sound really twisted, I'm glad it happened to me, because I have gained from it as well as lost from it.
Are there any last questions? Otherwise, I've got one to ask to Alice. So, Alice, what next for Poison Sea and stories? What will happen next with these stories? And a bonus question: where can we also hear other stories from some of our storytellers?
What a good link, Toby. What a good link. Anyone would think you'd thought about it. So I tentatively have a publisher who's interested in these stories, so fingers and toes crossed for that, please. But by hook or by crook, these stories will be published somewhere, because I'm a very determined person, and I believe that all of these stories deserve to be seen and read by other people, not just the ones that you have seen and heard tonight, but all of the other work that these people and the other people involved in the project have done. So there's poems, like I say, there's fiction, there's creative non-fiction, there's so much incredible work that has gone into this project, and I'm determined for it to see daylight somehow, some way. That's a song, isn't it? I'm not going to sing it. But if you are looking for other stories in the meantime, Toby and I do have a podcast called Afterthoughts, which Bav and Shamia have been on. Suki is on the forthcoming season. And who knows, maybe these other three who haven't been on it yet will appear on it soon. But we're very slow to make series, so it might be in a while. But yeah, it's called Afterthoughts, and you can find it wherever you usually listen to your podcasts. And it's stories also about what happens after a cancer diagnosis. But yeah, if there's no other questions, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for streaming online, if you've listened online, watched online. Thank you for throwing your support behind this project and these brilliant storytellers. And yeah, hope you have enjoyed your evening. Bye.